All right, here we go. Happy Monday. Hope all of your weeks are off to a great start. Another great show on tap for you today on Philadelphia Eagles. Now, as for what we're discussing here, could Philadelphia trade away Quez Watkins? Could the Birds deal number 10 in the NFL draft away for Jalen Ramsey? And is Philadelphia zeroing in on their defensive coordinator, a guy who spent a lot of time in North Philly many years ago? First, though, we're zeroing in on 42,000 subscribers. We're 100 people away. This is your one-stop shop for all things Eagles all throughout the year, especially every step of this offseason. So make sure you subscribe and lock us in for the best Eagles coverage right here on YouTube. Let's begin on this Quez Watkins trade front here. So The Athletic listing the third-year wide receiver as a potential trade candidate for the Eagles this offseason, which really doesn't come as much of a surprise for me because he does have talent that is certainly appealing for other teams in the NFL. The acquiring team won't need to take on a lot of money with this contract, and it became clearer and clearer throughout this season for the Birds that they need to upgrade at that wide receiver 3 position. Devontae Smith, A.J. Brown, one of, if not the best wide receiver duos in the National Football League, but at that third position in that wide receiver room, some concerns did become a little bit paramount as the season progressed. As for Quez Watkins' contract here, and what would happen if the Eagles were to either cut him or trade him away, because The Athletic did talk about him being either a trade candidate or a cut candidate. The cap hit in 2023, very affordable, less than $3 million at 2.78. The savings if he's cut or traded prior to June 1, $2.74 million, and the dead money pre-6-1, $42,000. So to really summarize all of that up, Quez Watkins, very affordable for the Eagles if they want to bring him back. Very affordable and also appealing for an acquiring team, considering that Quez Watkins offers top-end speed, a vertical threat, and a guy who does still have a lot of potential. He just hasn't been able to round into that potential, and he admitted after the season he took a step back in year 3 behind A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith. Now, he's still affordable, so I would not hate if the Eagles were to keep him, but you already know that if Howie Roseman were to get an offer that he really, really likes, whether a player who he thinks could impact this team better than Quez Watkins or a draft pick that they could use to maybe find his replacement, then Howie Roseman could look to wheel and deal, and we know that he fleeces many general managers across the sport. Here's what The Athletic had to say about that Watkins deal. Watkins had an underwhelming third season in Philadelphia as the number 3 wide receiver following A.J. Brown's addition to the offense. Upgrading from Watkins won't be the Eagles' top offseason priority, but it's something they'd like to do. Perhaps in the middle rounds of the draft, Watkins still offers top-end speed, so if there's a team desperate for some, Howie Roseman would certainly be open to a deal. And this is really how Howie Roseman goes about putting together his football team. If there's a way to improve it, he's going to exhaust those avenues and he's going to explore it. Now, you look at Quez's first 3 years, you'll see the drop-off from 2021 to 2022. A big reason why there was the decrease in receptions and in yards is because of the addition of A.J. Brown. Year 1, you weren't expecting much out of him, considering he didn't come from a football powerhouse in the college ranks. 7 catches, 106 yards, and a touchdown. But then in year 2, he goes on to have 43 catches for 647 yards. And then heading into year 3, he was one of the breakout stars throughout training camp because A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith are well-rounded and all-around wide receivers. Quez Watkins is more of that speed guy. So you're thinking that because he's somewhat limited with his skill set, if you were to play alongside those 2 players, he would have a lot of open looks. It didn't end up happening that way, and Quez Watkins went on to disappoint in his 3rd season as a pro. Now, could he make that jump to year 4? Of course. I'm not going to rule him out because the potential is certainly there. But what do you think? Should the Eagles look to trade Quez Watkins this offseason? Voice your opinions down in the comment section by giving me a Y for yes or an N for no. From a player who the Eagles could trade to a player who the Eagles could trade for. Jalen Ramsey. Should the Birds do it? I was listening to Joe Giglio, my guy on 94 WIP today, and he made the argument that Philadelphia should trade away the number 10 pick in this upcoming draft in April in exchange for Jalen Ramsey. And according to reports out there, the Rams are openly shopping him. This was a little bit of a news dump on a Friday from NFL Network's Tom Pelissero, who said the Rams have had trade talks about six-time Pro Bowler Jalen Ramsey. League sources now believe it's very likely Ramsey is dealt in the coming weeks. He's 28 years old. He's due $17 million in 2023 on a front-loaded deal that averages $20 million, and Los Angeles clearly clearing cap space with Jalen Ramsey as well as Bobby Wagner. The thought with trading for Jalen Ramsey is that the Eagles can trade the number 10 pick overall in the 2023 NFL draft in exchange for Jalen Ramsey. And in 2022, the Eagles made it to the Super Bowl because they had one of the top-ranked defenses in the NFL, led by a very good pass rush, but also a top-tier cornerback duo in Darius Slay and in James Bradberry. But if the Eagles were to let Bradberry walk, as he's looking to get paid in free agency, could they let him walk and then upgrade with an even player in Jalen Ramsey and then team him up with Darius Slay, the former All-Pro? The other thought here is that this is a cornerback deep draft for a lot of teams who are looking for a cornerback in this draft class. So you could draft a corner either at number 10 or at number 30, and that rookie, while less experienced, is going to be way, way cheaper than Jalen Ramsey. But here's where my concern is that the Eagles are going to be a bona fide Super Bowl contender heading into 2023. And if that back end is not intact, then I have concerns about this defense with a new defensive coordinator. And if James Bradberry does walk for more money, and the Eagles don't make a trade for Jalen Ramsey, and they decide to draft the cornerback either with the 10th overall pick or the 30th overall pick, will that rookie cornerback, given the lack of experience, struggle in year one, having to take on a massive workload and be counted on in this defense to lock down some of the premier wide receivers in the sport? The downside to trading for Jalen Ramsey is that he's really, really expensive, $17 million on the books for 2023. The upside, though, is that if you mortgage some draft capital, when he's right, when he's engaged, and he is coming off a down year, Ramsey, no question, is a top 5 cornerback in this league. And Howie Roseman can stack the roster with another elite playmaker, and he likes to do that by being aggressive via the trade market and fleecing other teams, and that's been his history over the last several years. What's crazy about the Eagles and their need for a cornerback, potentially in the draft, if they don't make a trade and they don't bring back James Bradberry, they have not drafted a cornerback in the first round since Lito Shepherd back in 2002. Lito Shepherd ended up going to a Pro Bowl. He was a first-team All-Pro, but the Eagles draft history have not selected a cornerback in the first round since 2002. So should the Eagles trade for Jalen Ramsey? Our second poll question for today's show. T for trade, P for pass. Once again, you let us know down in the comment section. Coming up next on the show, more on Ramsey, a look at some of the finer details of his contract as well as his numbers from this past year, and are the Eagles zeroing in on their new defensive coordinator to replace Jonathan Gannon. First, though, over the weekend I was doing some shopping on Amazon, and my experience was made a lot better, safer, and I saved a lot of money thanks to Cultivate, today's sponsor. What is Cultivate? Let me tell you right now, because it's been a game changer for me ever since they became a sponsor here at Chat Sports. It's a free browser extension that brings transparency to your Amazon shopping experience. Cultivate shows you the brand, seller, or product origin and identifies local alternatives that support local community efforts while saving you, the purchaser, money. With over 50% of Amazon U.S. sellers based in China, Cultivate offers a way to avoid trickery from these sellers and keep money in the U.S. economy. They offer alternatives that are on average 30% less expensive than Amazon without any additional costs, such as Amazon Prime. It can even identify local alternatives that you could pick up the same day. Cultivate users earn free donations as rewards for using the extension, and the more you use it, the more you earn in donations by increasing your level. In fact, Cultivate donates 51% of the revenue they make on your purchase. So, Bird Gang, What are you waiting for? Head to wecultivate.us/chatsports and download Cultivate for free. I was using it over the weekend and pretty much went on to Amazon. I was able to see the products that I wanted to purchase, and then Cultivate automatically on top of that has some potentially cheaper products that you can get locally. So download the browser extension. I have it linked up with Google Chrome, wecultivate.us/chatsports. Jalen Ramsey in 2022. Was he that top 5 cornerback in the NFL? In my opinion, he was not. He actually had a down year. I think he was frustrated by a lot of losing. I think that he was frustrated by the Rams defense being subpar, and he didn't seem to be engaged. And I think that backs up why he gave up 5 touchdowns, and he had 4 interceptions on 18 pass breakups. He still has very, very good instincts. He's only 28 years old. There's some elite football left in him, but with Jacksonville at the tail end of the tenure and last year with Los Angeles, I worried about the focus. And when he was targeted, a completion percentage by opposing quarterbacks of almost 63%. The other downside with trading for Ramsey is that contract. 2023 cap hit of $25.2 million. It's that $17 million number in base salary that we were talking about earlier. If he were to get traded prior to June 1st, the Rams would save $5.5 million. After June 1, they would save $17 million, restructure savings $10.5, but it looks as though they're going to look to deal him, and the new team would owe him 3 years and $55 million. But is he looking for a contract extension, which would make him potentially even more expensive? According to Mike Florio, the answer to that is yes, that he wants a new contract despite having 3 years left. And I think a reason for that is because Ramsey at one point was the highest paid cornerback in the NFL. He is no longer, after the extension last offseason for Jair Alexander as well as Denzel Ward. They're not beating Jalen Ramsey by all that much, but if he believes that he's the best cornerback in the NFL, he realizes his worth, and he probably talked to his agent, I believe that I'm the best corner in the NFL. I want to be the highest paid cornerback in the NFL. Let's get a new deal done. And we know that with alpha males like this, they want to be considered and looked at, and they want the numbers to back up that they are, in fact, the go-to guy at that cornerback spot. So, should the Eagles trade for him? Really, I don't think it's going to happen. Would I trade away number 10? I would certainly think about it. I mean, shoot, if the Rams were thinking about getting the number 10 pick from Philadelphia, and they would give the Birds Jalen Ramsey because they don't have a lot of draft capital. This is a team that is rebuilding. They let go of Bobby Wagner. They're looking to trade Jalen Ramsey, and they want a premium player at number 10 who's going to be affordable for the next 4 or 5 years. Then I would probably do that straight up. The number paid to Jalen Ramsey, a little bit concerning, but also keep in mind, Darius Slay isn't getting any younger either. He's in his 30s now, and how much good football does he have left? Jalen Ramsey, only 28 years old. He could be a part of this core for the future, and I think that this is a guy that Philadelphia Eagles fans would really like because he plays the game of football like an absolute dog. And you team him up with C.J. Gardner-Johnson. If you bring him back, that's a lot of swag on the back end for the Eagles. If you want to interact with me on Twitter and Instagram all throughout this offseason, and shoot, all throughout the year as well, don't hesitate to hit me up. I've had a lot of you reach out to me. It's been awesome. At Chase_Senior on Twitter as well as Instagram. It's the same handle on both social media platforms. All right, let's round out today's show with this. Are the Philadelphia Eagles zeroing in on their new defensive coordinator to replace Jonathan Gannon? Well, Sean Desai today is actually at the Eagles facility, and this is his second interview, and he could be named the DC very, very quickly if the Eagles don't go the route of the internal candidate that is Denard Wilson, the Eagles' current defensive backs coach. Here's what Ian Rappaport had to say very early this morning, that Seahawks associate head coach and defensive assistant Sean Desai in the building in Philly today doing a second interview for the Eagles' vacant defensive coordinator job. Desai, a Vic Fangio disciple, is a finalist for the post previously held by Jonathan Gannon. Now, Sean Desai only has 1 year of experience as a defensive coordinator, but in that 1 year with the Chicago Bears and the last year of that Matt Nagy regime, that Bears defense, which does not and did not have as much talent as this current Eagles defense, put up some pretty good numbers. Sean Desai in his lone season as Eagles defensive coordinator, or as Bears defensive coordinator, as he looks to become the Eagles defensive coordinator if he gets hired. Pass defense was 4th. Sacks ranked 4th. Total yards per game 5th. And Desai's path has some local ties. He played at Boston College, he played at Columbia, and he rounded out his collegiate career at Temple. That's where he stayed to be the defensive and special teams head coach. In 2011, he was the assistant director of football operations at Miami, so he went there with Al Golden. In 2012, running backs coach and special teams coordinator. Then he elevated to the NFL ranks, and with the Chicago Bears from 2013 to 2018, the defensive quality control coach, elevated from there to become a position coach as he was coaching safeties in 2021. Last year for Matt Nagy before the new Matt Eberflus and Ryan Poles regime, he became the Bears defensive coordinator where he put up some solid numbers. In 2022, he went to Seattle after he was not retained by that new Bears coaching staff and under Pete Carroll, the associate head coach and defensive assistant, and he's still only 39 years old, which really does fit the prototype for a lot of the young defensive coordinators who Nick Sirianni's been hiring. Now, you have Sean Desai here, but you also have an internal candidate in Denard Wilson, who it looks as though a lot of the players on this Eagles team are vying for to replace Jonathan Gannon. That includes Darius Slay, it includes Marcus Epps, who quote tweeted this tweet, and C.J. Gardner-Johnson. So big play Slay with this. Man, all of these new coaches are getting jobs. I know my guy Denard Wilson should be a defensive coordinator in the NFL. C.J. Gardner-Johnson said this, which actually backs up what he told me when I interviewed him during Super Bowl week. No cap, Denard Wilson damn sure deserves it. He helped me elevate my game most definitely. And when I asked C.J. Gardner-Johnson in the lead up to the Super Bowl, hey, what allowed you to seamlessly make the switch from full-time nickel when you were a part-time safety to full-time safety? Denard Wilson was to his right. He said, this guy right here. And I was like, oh, Denard Wilson. So a lot of these players internally are fighting for him to become the defensive coordinator, which is certainly interesting. As for a guy who's no longer in the mix, it's Glenn Schumann, the Georgia Bulldogs defensive coordinator, who I had become bullish on because that Georgia defense has had some dogs. You have a couple of young guys on this roster who played under Schumann in Jordan Davis and Nakobe Dean, and I like his philosophy on defense because it's very NFL-like. This coming from Chris Lowe, who covers Georgia for ESPN, after interviewing Glenn Schumann returning to Georgia football. That's big news for the Dogs. He said Schumann was co-defensive coordinator and called plays last year for the two-time defending champions. Georgia had already lost offensive coordinator Todd Monken to the NFL because he went to the Baltimore Ravens, which looks as though he's going to team up there with Lamar Jackson if they sign him to that contract extension or they allow him to play 2023 under that franchise tag. So Schumann no longer in the mix. It looks to be a two-horse race right now. Sean Desai as well as Denard Wilson, two guys here on Philadelphia Eagles now who we've been talking about ever since Jonathan Gannon took that job with the Arizona Cardinals. So with that, we round out today's show with this. Who do you want as the next Eagles defensive coordinator? You let us know down in the comment section. We appreciate you for watching, and don't forget to subscribe to us here on Eagles Now.